Mark, obviously 2020 has been a tough year for a lot of
Right.
people. I mean, even, as positive as we try to be, I think it affects all of us too.
Sure.
So we're moving into 2021. We've got some big things coming up. What's your overall impression of this past year? If you had to sum up 2020, how would you put it?
Hard, deep amount of character and integrity testing of the individual, every man, woman, and child, because what you're seeing taking place right now is God's doing a deep work in people, whether it's character, whether it's integrity, whatever it is, it's going deep. And let me give an example of that. So what we've got is a political exposure going on, and I've been prophesying for years, since the beginning of my ministry here, that God said that the spiritual exposures will parallel the political exposures. Anything you see happening in the political realm will be exposed and is going on in the spiritual realm.
Mhm.
Now, how many people have we had come out politically and attack Donald Trump? Well, that's no great prophetic, insight. I mean, we've seen it. It's all coming to pass. They're coming out and attacking the president on a daily, minute by minute basis. What we haven't seen up until about, we've had some attacks going on the spiritual side. But what's happening now is we're digging deep and we're finding out who is truly on the president's side, especially on the evangelical side. Look at the ones we've had come out. Beth Moore, that's no great secret. She's been part of the deep state church for I don't know how long. Then you've got some other people that come out. Franklin Graham came out the other day saying President-elect Biden. Look, anyone who's coming out right now and saying President-elect Biden right now is a red flag. It's showing you who their allegiance is to. It's showing you that they're remaining neutral. God is saying in this time, choose this day whom you are going to serve. Are you going to look? The devil owns the fence. Who are you going to choose? And they want to do this neutrality, if you will, to go along to get along. Mm-hmm. Now, so these pastors are coming out and they're starting to expose themselves, these wolves in sheep's clothing, as to who they truly are. They don't have the president's back. They don't have the president spiritually. We've talked about this before in your program, where it's not even biblical to have pastors as your spiritual advisory. I've been screaming from the rooftops about the spiritual advisory board he's got around him. He's got a bunch of vipers up there. These guys do not have his back. And look, the heat hasn't even gotten turned up yet, guys. The heat's going to get turned up when they announce he's the winner. And they're going to announce at some point he is the winner. Now, what day that is, I do not know. Hopefully it will be January 6th where Pence steps in and pretty much ends it all right there. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the point is, we know we have won this election. It's already been won in the spirit. It has to play out in the natural. But you're going to find out when the heat gets turned up, when they announce that he's won the presidency, that's when the trouble's going to really start. Now, we're already seeing false flags. I know you guys were talking about it in the last hour. The false flags could kick up. We got to expect things to get worse before it gets better here, because we have not come to the crescendo quite yet. We're reaching the crescendo here, but it's when they announce he's won is probably going to be when the crescendo starts, I would imagine. Now, who is going to come out and stand by the president when this happens? When the arrests start to go down, I've been saying this for over 2 years, there is a betrayal coming from the spiritual advisory board that when the arrests go down, that they will come out and they will say that, no, we need to pardon them or we need to forgive them. And they will make it sound like God. They will make it taste like God. They will make it smell like God, when in fact it is pure evil. That is not what God is saying. It's coming from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And what God is saying is no, maximum sentence, maximum penalty. Now, it's one thing, because justice is inbound, guys. There's no stopping this justice that's coming. I've been prophesying this for like almost 5 years now, that we would have military tribunals. And people thought I was nuts when I came out with this stuff. Now it's not so far-fetched, because we're hearing the rumblings of military tribunals in the background, whether it's through the Q community or whether it's through the patriotic community. Things are being set up for military tribunals. But the point is that these guys, when the heat gets turned up, they're going to say, let's just pardon these guys. Let's just go along to get along. That's not what God would want. You know what I mean? Let's just pardon Obama. And what God is saying is no, nothing's going to stop the justice. They can repent and they can be forgiven, but that's not going to stop the justice that's coming. They will serve maximum sentence, maximum penalty, even if that's by death by hanging or firing squad, like we all seen now has been legalized through the feds now can actually do these federal executions. So it is not coming. It is here right now. The justice is coming. It's here. There will be no mercy on the justice, but there will be mercy for repentance. If that makes sense. There is a difference in the two.
Methods, were you going to say something?
No, well, I can agree with Mark that I do believe that something is coming here. Like, you can see the writing on the wall happening, the positions being, like, things being put in place, whether it's at the Pentagon or on, public disclosure boards. We could see this going on. But I agree the best way to make sure that we get away from this sin, like this filth world that we're in and what's been created here in our society, is for what you're talking about. It's got to be that level of justice to occur, to make sure that we not only go on the right track, which I believe we are, but it's like the death throes that we're watching of the deep state, where, like, when you're casting, like we've talked before, like when you're casting out a demon and it doesn't want to let go, we're watching that happen. It's just spread over years. I think we've got to reach this point and have those things happen to where, when it even, like, in the future, we see it get even close to that, we're like, no. We've been through this before. We know where that road leads, and the consequences of it. So I agree with you. I think it's got to happen.
Well, there's been zero accountability, guys. Think about this. When was the last time someone was executed for treason in this country?
The Rosenbergs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how long ago was that? What year was that?
It's like 100 years ago.
I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's been zero accountability. So, look, I know this is pretty harsh, but if they brought back public hangings again for treason, watch how fast this stuff would stop. If they started executing people for pedophilia, watch how fast this stuff stops. See, this is the problem. There's been no accountability. The same thing is in the church. There's no accountability in the churches. There's no accountability with these pastors. You got people like Beth Moore. You got people out there with these mega churches that are being controlled with handlers, that are being told what to say, what to do. And by the way, I don't know if you guys followed Dr. Stella. She was one of the white coat regiment doctors for HCQ when the whole COVID thing was coming out. She just exposed that Big Pharma was now paying pastors $30,000 a piece to push vaccines.
That's right. I did hear that.
This shows you that there's no accountability. There's no fear of the Lord anymore. And so what's fixing to happen here with justice is, I believe that the spirit of the fear of the Lord is going to basically hit people hard. It's going to hit the entire planet, because God is not putting up with this mess anymore. You're going to see these churches go bankrupt. You're going to see them shut. Why is America and the earth burning right now? Because the church has refused to do its job. Mm-hmm. And what you have is a remnant people who are not inside the church system, who are not incorporated, who are not a 501c3. It's not a business. It is simply about preaching the pure gospel of Jesus Christ. It is the ecclesia, those who are in home groups, who are out on the streets, the highways, the byways. It's not inside the four walls of a church. The church is the spiritual and moral compass of any nation. They have literally committed spiritual treason. Mm-hmm. Yes, that is a term that God has given us. Yep. Spiritual treason, which is no different than regular treason in the natural. These guys have sold their souls. They've sold their flock down the road on the altar of mammon. They've sacrificed their flock on the altar of mammon. When you look at these guys from the Black Coat Regiment in the Revolutionary War, who was the first one to fire a shot? It was a pastor. So these guys would literally take up physical arms to protect their flock and their country. Mm-hmm. Today, you would never see that. Contrast that to today. They will do everything to protect the corporation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They don't care who it hurts. That's the contrast of today. So you've got these guys that are meek and mild out here. They've taught a generation of people, if you will, that say, well, we're not supposed to fight. We're supposed to be meek and mild. They pervert Romans 13, saying, we have to submit to civil authority. No, you don't. Jesus never submitted to civil authority. He bucked the civil authority every chance he got. Mm-hmm. It was the Pharisees that he was constantly bucking these guys. So they skew that. That's anytime you hear someone preaching Romans 13, perverting it, saying that you have to submit to the authorities over us, and they're skewing it with civil authority, that is a telltale sign of the FEMA clergy response team, because that's what they taught in the FEMA clergy response team, which I believe it's now been changed to a different name. It's called VOTE or something like that. I have to look it up. Is the organization. And you would be surprised, and we all know through our little friend, back here, Q, yep, that, the Red Cross, anytime the Red Cross is involved in something, look out. The Red Cross is involved in that organization. So, again, you got to realize that the churches have been infiltrated, political realm has been infiltrated, every aspect of life has been infiltrated. We are dealing with the cabal, which has been on the earth for thousands of years, which has been controlling the earth for thousands of years. We are now in the process of taking control of that and bringing it back to we, the people. I think you're going to see a global revolution, if you will, I think when they come out with all of the details, with all of the proof of the Dominion voting machines, that's where I think the global revolution is going to start. Because how many countries use Dominion? What, like 30 or something like that?
Quite a few, yeah.
It was a ton of countries that use Dominion voting machines. So what's going to happen when all this proof comes out and they see that America has literally not been choosing their president? They haven't been electing their presidents. The president's been chosen for them.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with these 30 different countries all over the world, because that's how they've been keeping these dictators in. It's going to start a global revolution.
Right. And then if you work it backwards on, okay, how far have they been using the machines? What elections were handled on that? Not just presidents, but, at least for here in
Federal,
America.
state, local levels. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you walk it all the way back there, then you need to have then Occam's razor would be, we need to hold new elections and start over fresh here. And then you could see the real numbers. And then you can really answer the question of how did some of these people stay in Congress so long when they obviously aren't there to help the American people. There's nobody at home that's supporting them unless they support the agenda that's take out Trump or something. So to me, if we can ever get an honest election of a Schiff, of a Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, like seeing the actual numbers, I bet that they would have been knocked out, a decade or two ago.
Because let me give you a prime example of this. I've been saying since 2012, Obama did not win his second term. It was stolen. We all know that now at this point, because now if they truly went back and did an audit of all the elections prior to this, we'd find out. I've been saying for I don't know how long, we don't have, because God told me, He said, we don't have as many blue zones and blue areas as we think we do. These people that are inhabiting these thrones that I call them, or these seats, seats of power, is that they're not supposed to be there. It was stolen. Now, let me give a prime example of this, what you're talking about, Methods, because down here in St. Petersburg, Florida, Anna Paulina Luna was running against Charlie Crist. Now, Charlie Crist, we all know I'll spare you the names, but this guy went from Republican to Independent to Democrat. He doesn't know which way he wants to go. He was the governor of Florida, the worst governor ever, period. And so he ran down here. Anna Paulina was running against him, and she's ex-Air Force veteran, and she called him out on multiple occasions publicly because he refused to debate her.
Mm-hmm.
So now what happens? It turns around. He wasn't even campaigning, guys, but he beat her, but she outraised him like 3-1 in funds. So he knew that the fix was already in. Now, St. Petersburg is corrupt as corrupt can get. That's the new Broward County down there.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just simply switching places is what they're doing. So what happened? Charlie Crist won that because they cheated. Now, that was at a state level, if you will, like you're talking about. And so I DM'd and I said, are you sure you lost this? Because I don't think you lost. And she says, well, they told me I did. I think you need to check, possibly. And she was like, I said, Sidney Powell's looking for proof right now. So she contacted Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell said I think they're going to look into it, is what they're looking into. Because, again, how far down does this go? It goes from the federal to the state to the local level. How many city council people, how many mayors, how many county council people do we have at the local levels that have been stealing these elections? You got like Orlando over here. You got the same mayor that's been in there for like 20-something years. How does this happen, guys? The same Democratic mayors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's because they've been manipulating the votes, and what God was saying was true. We don't have as many of these people as we think we do. It's been stolen, period. These people are not even supposed to be there. Think about this for a second. We have people in high offices that are literally occupying these thrones, if you will, of power, that aren't supposed to be there, but yet they're making life and death decisions for our country, and they're not supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think of the power behind that, man.
Mark,